The information provided in this video is for educational and entertainment purposes only and does not constitute professional marketing, legal, or financial advice. Email marketing involves various technical and regulatory requirements, including but not limited to the CAN-SPAM Act, GDPR, and CASL. The effectiveness of any strategy is dependent on numerous variables, and past performance or historical trends do not ensure future results. Viewers should conduct their own due diligence and consult with qualified professionals before implementing any business strategies or making significant changes to their marketing infrastructure. The era of the email blast is officially dead, and if you are still using that terminology, you are likely part of the 90% of businesses that are currently lighting their marketing budget on fire. There is a silent crisis happening in the digital marketing world right now. Across the United States, thousands of companies are watching their open rates plummet towards zero, not because their content is bad, but because they have been effectively shadow banned by the giants like Google, Yahoo, and Microsoft. You might think you have a list of 50,000 loyal subscribers, but the reality is that 40,000 of those individuals may never even see your name in their primary inbox. They are being redirected to the graveyard of the promotions tab, or worse, the black hole of the spam folder. This is not a minor technical glitch. It is the result of a fundamental misunderstanding of how modern email ecosystems operate. If you do not change your approach today, you are not just losing sales. You are actively destroying your brand's digital reputation in a way that can take years to recover. Today, we are moving past the surface-level advice you find in 5-minute tutorials. This is a comprehensive masterclass designed to dismantle the most catastrophic mistakes that are currently crippling your ROI. We are going to look at the historical trends that have shifted the landscape of deliverability, examine case studies of brands that lost their entire distribution channel overnight, and provide a step-by-step framework to ensure your message actually reaches the human beings who want to hear from you. By the end of this deep dive, you will understand the invisible mechanics of sender reputation and how to leverage psychological triggers that turn a cold list into a high conversion engine. The first and most lethal mistake we must address is the obsession with delivery rates over inbox placement. This is a nuance that even seasoned marketing directors often overlook. When you look at your email service provider's dashboard and see a 99% delivery rate, you might feel a sense of security. However, that statistic is one of the most misleading metrics in all of digital marketing. A delivered email simply means the receiving server did not reject the file outright. It does not mean the email reached the inbox. In the modern landscape, the mailbox provider acts as a sophisticated gatekeeper. Using historical trends as a guide, we can see a clear shift toward behavioral filtering. These providers analyze how your specific recipients interact with your mail. If you are sending to a massive, unsegmented list, and a significant portion of those people ignore your messages, the algorithms conclude that your content is unwanted. Consequently, they begin to route your emails to the spam folder for everyone, including your most engaged customers. This creates a deliverability death spiral that is incredibly difficult to exit once it begins. To understand how to avoid this, we have to look at the technical foundation of your strategy. Many businesses fail because they ignore the holy trinity of email authentication: SPF, DKIM, and DMARC. In an environment where phishing and spoofing are rampant, mailbox providers are no longer giving the benefit of the doubt to unauthenticated senders. SPF, or Sender Policy Framework, is essentially a record that tells the world which servers are authorized to send mail on behalf of your domain. DKIM, or Domain Keys Identified Mail, adds a digital signature to your emails, proving that the content has not been tampered with in transit. Finally, DMARC, which stands for Domain-Based Message Authentication, Reporting, and Conformance, provides instructions to the receiving server on what to do if the first two checks fail. If your infrastructure is not correctly configured, you are essentially sending mail from a suspicious, anonymous source. Historical data suggests that domains with fully optimized DMARC records see significantly higher inbox placement than those without. This is not just a technical chore. It is the digital equivalent of verified credentials for your brand. Beyond the technical hurdles, we must confront the mistake of the quantity over quality mindset in list building. The potential outcomes of a small, highly engaged list far outweigh the performance of a massive, bloated database of disinterested contacts. A common error is the refusal to prune the list. Most marketers are terrified of seeing their subscriber count go down, but having ghost subscribers is an active liability. These are the people who have not opened an email in 6 months but remain on your list. Every time you send to them and they do not engage, they are sending a negative signal to Google and Yahoo. They are telling the filters that your content is irrelevant. By failing to implement a rigorous re-engagement or sunset policy, you are allowing these inactive accounts to drag down the reputation of your entire domain. A case study of a mid-sized e-commerce brand showed that by purging 30% of their inactive list, they actually saw a 50% increase in total revenue from email because their messages finally started hitting the primary inbox of their active buyers. Another critical failure is the lack of a sophisticated segmentation strategy. The days of sending the same offer to every person on your list are over. Modern consumers in the US market expect a personalized experience. When you send a promotion for a product that a customer has already bought, or one that is completely irrelevant to their demographic, you are training them to ignore you. Irrelevance is the fastest path to the spam button. Effective segmentation goes beyond basic demographics like age or location. It involves behavioral tracking. What have they clicked on in the past? What was the source of their sign-up? How often do they interact with your brand? By failing to categorize your audience into buckets based on their stage in the customer journey, you are missing out on the potential outcomes of targeted messaging. A subscriber who just joined your list today requires a completely different tone and value proposition than a VIP customer who has been with you for 3 years. We also need to discuss the psychological mistake of the bait-and-switch subject line. In a desperate attempt to boost open rates, many marketers use deceptive or overly sensationalist subject lines that do not match the content of the email. While this might result in a temporary spike in opens, the long-term historical trends show it leads to a massive increase in unsubscribe rates and spam complaints. Trust is the primary currency of the inbox. If a user feels tricked, they will not only delete the email but will likely harbor a negative perception of your brand that lasts for years. The goal is not just to get the email opened. It is to build a relationship that facilitates a transaction. Every interaction is either building or eroding that trust. Finally, we must address the error of neglecting the mobile experience. A vast majority of US consumers now check their email primarily on mobile devices. If your layout is not responsive, if your font is too small, or if your call to action buttons are impossible to click with a thumb, you are effectively opting out of the mobile economy. This is a foundational mistake that impacts every other part of your strategy. No matter how good your segmentation or your copywriting is, if the user experience is frustrating, the conversion will never happen. This masterclass is about more than just avoiding errors. It is about building a robust, future-proof system that treats the inbox as a sacred space for communication. We are going to break down exactly how to audit your current strategy, identify these hidden leaks, and implement the high-level tactics used by the top 1% of digital marketers to maintain a dominant presence in the inbox. To start this deep dive, we have to look at the silent killer of even the most sophisticated campaigns: the lack of rigorous list hygiene. Imagine a business owner in Chicago named Michael. In early 2026, Michael is looking at his dashboard for his outdoor gear company, and he sees a subscriber count of 100,000 people. He feels successful because that number has grown steadily for 5 years. However, when he sends out his major spring break promotion, his actual sales are lower than they were when he only had 20,000 subscribers. This is the zombie list syndrome. Michael has failed to realize that nearly 60% of his list is composed of unengaged users, abandoned accounts, and spam traps. Historically, mailbox providers like Gmail and Outlook have shifted their focus from simply looking at your content to looking at your sender reputation, which is heavily weighted by how many people actually interact with your mail. If Michael sends an email to 100,000 people and 80,000 of them ignore it, the mailbox providers conclude that Michael is sending low-value content or spam. Consequently, they begin to route his emails to the promotions or spam folders for everyone, including his most active customers. The step-by-step fix for this starts with a comprehensive audit of your bounce rates. If your hard bounce rate exceeds 1%, you have a fundamental problem with your data collection. You must implement a system to immediately remove any email address that returns a permanent failure. Next, you need to identify your unengaged segment. In the current landscape of 2026, any subscriber who has not opened or clicked an email in the last 90 to 120 days should be considered a risk to your deliverability. You do not just delete them immediately. Instead, you run a re-engagement or sunset sequence. This involves sending a high-value, direct communication asking if they still want to receive updates. If they do not respond to this final outreach, you must remove them. While it is painful to see your total subscriber count drop from 100,000 to 40,000, the potential outcomes are transformative. Case studies of major U.S. retailers show that after pruning their lists of inactive users, their open rates often triple, and their total revenue from email increases because their messages are finally reaching the primary inbox of people who actually want to buy. Another catastrophic mistake is the failure to adapt to the 2026 legal and privacy landscape in the United States. Many marketers are still operating under the assumption that as long as they follow the basic federal CAN-SPAM Act, they are safe. This is a dangerous misconception. States like California, Virginia, and several others have introduced complex privacy regulations that demand much higher standards for consent and data handling. If you are a marketing manager in Austin named Sarah, and you are still using pre-checked boxes on your sign-up forms, you are courting legal disaster and high complaint rates. Modern consumers are increasingly protective of their digital space. When someone finds themselves on a list they do not remember joining, their first instinct is to hit the spam button rather than the unsubscribe link. In the eyes of an ISP, a spam complaint is 10 times more damaging than an unsubscribe. To avoid this, you must transition to a transparent opt-in process. Historical trends suggest that double opt-in, where a user must confirm their email address via a secondary link, leads to a significantly higher quality of lead. It ensures that every person on your list is a real human with a valid address who has a genuine interest in your brand. Furthermore, you must make the unsubscribe process as frictionless as possible. It might seem counterintuitive to make it easy for people to leave, but a one-click unsubscribe is your best defense against the spam folder. If a user has to log in or fill out a survey to stop receiving your emails, they will simply report you as spam to save time. This technical oversight can lead to your entire domain being blacklisted by major providers, a situation that can take months of technical headers and appeals to resolve. We must also address the mistake of the one-size-fits-all content strategy. Imagine if you were a customer of a high-end tech brand in Seattle. You just purchased a top-tier professional workstation for $5,000. 2 days later, you receive a generic promotional email offering a 10% discount to new customers on the exact machine you just bought. Not only is this irrelevant, but it also creates immediate buyer's remorse and devalues your brand. This happens because the company failed to implement a basic segmentation and exclusion strategy. In 2026, your audience expects personalization that goes far beyond just putting their first name in the subject line. You need to segment your audience based on their actual behavior, what they have bought, what pages they have visited on your site, and how much they have spent over their lifetime as a customer. A step-by-step approach to fixing this involves integrating your CRM data directly with your email service provider. Every time a customer makes a purchase, they should be automatically tagged and moved out of general prospect sequences and into post-purchase nurture flows. For a prospect, the potential outcomes of a high-frequency educational sequence are positive. For a recent buyer, however, that same sequence is an annoyance. You should be using behavioral triggers to send specific content. If a user clicks on a link about marathon running shoes but does not buy, your next communication should be a deep dive into the technology of those shoes or a case study of a runner who used them, not a generic update about your entire store inventory. Case studies across the e-commerce sector in 2026 indicate that segmented campaigns drive nearly 3 times the revenue per recipient compared to non-segmented broadcasts. The pacing of your sends is another area where many brands fail. There is a common mistake known as the batch and blast peak. Historically, marketers thought that if they sent all their emails at 9 a.m. on a Tuesday, they would catch everyone at their desks. However, mailbox providers now use sophisticated machine learning to monitor the volume of incoming mail from a specific IP or domain. If you suddenly spike from sending 0 emails to sending 50,000 in 1 minute, it triggers a red flag for spam. This is why send throttling and IP warming are critical components of a modern strategy. You should be spreading your sends over several hours, or using AI-driven delivery windows that send the email at the specific time each individual subscriber is most likely to open it based on their historical patterns. Furthermore, many creators and businesses are still neglecting the technical layout of their emails, specifically regarding the image-to-text ratio. If your email is just one large, beautiful image designed by a professional graphic artist, you are likely failing the spam filters of most major corporations and high-security inboxes. Many email clients disable images by default. If your entire message is contained within that image, the user sees nothing but a blank box with a red X. This is a massive missed opportunity. Your emails must be designed with a mobile-first, text-heavy approach that uses images as a supplement, not the core of the message. You need to ensure that your alt text is descriptive and that your call to action is a bulletproof button made of code, not a button embedded in a picture. But even if you have mastered the technical side, there is a psychological trap that most marketers fall into regarding their subject lines and pre-header text. Many people believe that the goal of a subject line is to get the open at any cost. This leads to the mistake of using clickbait that does not align with the actual content of the email. While this might show a temporary spike in your metrics, the historical data on brand sentiment is clear. It destroys long-term value. In 2026, the pre-header text, that small snippet of text that appears after the subject line in your inbox, is just as important as the subject line itself. Failing to optimize this is like leaving money on the table. It is your second chance to convince the user that your email is worth their time. However, there is one hidden factor that is even more dangerous than a bad subject line. It is a specific type of formatting that almost every amateur marketer uses because it looks professional, but it actually signals to the latest 2026 AI spam filters that your message is a high-risk solicitation. This one mistake can cause your engagement to flatline overnight, regardless of how great your offer is. In the next part, we are going to break down exactly what this formatting trap is and how to restructure your emails to look like a personal message from a friend, which is the only way to consistently stay in the primary inbox. This formatting trap is what I call the high-gloss graveyard. Imagine a marketing manager named David in Miami. It is 2026, and David is working for a mid-sized software company. He prides himself on his brand's aesthetic. Every email he sends is a masterpiece of graphic design, filled with high-resolution hero images, multiple columns of text, integrated social media feeds, and custom-coded navigation bars that mirror his website. To David, this looks professional. To a 2026 AI-driven spam filter at Google or Microsoft, this looks like a massive commercial broadcast that belongs nowhere near the primary inbox. The historical trends of the last few years show a violent shift in how mailbox providers categorize incoming mail. In the past, filters looked for specific trigger words like free or win. Today, they are looking at the underlying structure of the email. When an email contains a high ratio of HTML code relative to the amount of plain text, it is instantly flagged as a marketing communication. This is because personal emails, the kind you send to a colleague or a friend, do not contain complex tables, nested divs, or tracking pixels for 15 different third-party services. By trying to look like a high-end magazine, David is inadvertently signaling to the algorithms that his message is an intrusion rather than a contribution. The step-by-step solution to this is the implementation of a minimalist or plain text-first strategy. This does not mean your emails have to be boring or ugly. It means they need to be architected for human connection. A case study from a leading US-based financial education firm in early 2026 demonstrated that when they switched from heavy, image-laden templates to a simple single-column text layout with a single clear call-to-action link, their primary inbox placement increased by 35%. Their subscribers felt like they were receiving a personal note from the founder rather than a corporate circular. This psychological shift resulted in a 20% increase in click-through rates because the friction of the commercial interface was removed. To implement this, you must first audit your current templates for code bloat. Every extra line of CSS or unnecessary JavaScript tag is a potential red flag. If you are using a drag-and-drop editor, you are often injecting hidden code that serves no purpose other than to make the editor work. You should move toward using clean, hand-coded HTML or simple rich text. In 2026, the most effective emails often look like they were typed directly into a Gmail Compose window. They use standard fonts like Arial or Helvetica, they avoid complex layouts, and they use images sparingly, only when the image itself provides essential information that text cannot convey. Next, we have to talk about the mistake of the no-reply sender address. If your emails are coming from an address like noreply@yourcompany.com, you are making a foundational error that is costing you deliverability and trust. In the 2026 ecosystem, interaction is one of the highest weighted factors in sender reputation. Mailbox providers monitor how many people reply to your emails. If a subscriber hits reply and asks a question, and your server rejects that message because the address doesn't exist, you are sending a signal that you are a one-way broadcaster who does not value the user experience. Instead, you should be using a real monitored inbox, such as hello@yourcompany.com, or even the name of a specific team member. You should actively encourage replies. Imagine if David in Miami ended his emails not with a generic link, but with a question. What is the biggest challenge you are facing with your workflow this week? Hit reply and let me know. When people reply and David's team responds, the mailbox providers see a two-way conversation. This marks David's domain as a high-trust sender. Historical trends suggest that domains with high reply-to-send ratios almost never see their mail diverted to the spam folder. This is a deliberate strategy to manufacture engagement signals that the algorithms cannot ignore. Another significant mistake involves link hygiene and the overuse of tracking redirects. Most email service providers use their own shared domains for tracking clicks. If you are using a low-cost or mid-tier provider, you are sharing that tracking domain with thousands of other senders. If just a few of those senders are behaving badly, that tracking domain gets a poor reputation. When you include a link in your email that redirects through a tainted tracking domain, your deliverability suffers by association. In 2026, the potential outcomes of using a custom tracking domain are massive. This allows you to use your own subdomain for tracking links, which isolates your reputation from the bad actors on your provider's network. Furthermore, the number of links in your email matters. A common mistake is including a link in every other paragraph, plus 5 links in the footer, and 3 links in a sidebar. This is known as link bloat. Not only does this look suspicious to filters, but it also creates decision paralysis for the reader. If you give a subscriber 5 different things to click on, they are statistically less likely to click on any of them. The most successful case studies in 2026 show that the highest converting emails focus on a single primary objective. If you want them to read a blog post, that should be the only prominent link. If you want them to buy a product, don't distract them with links to your Instagram, your latest podcast, and your terms of service page in the main body of the email. We also have to address the mistake of ignoring the signature. Many professional signatures are a nightmare of image files and social media icons. Each of those icons is a separate link and a separate image file that needs to be loaded. For a 2026 filter, a signature with 6 social icons looks like a cluster of outbound marketing trackers. You should simplify your signature to include only the essential information in plain text. If you must include social links, use text links rather than images. This reduces the load time and the technical footprint of the email, making it more likely to pass through strict corporate filters that strip out images and suspicious scripts. But even with perfect formatting and a clean signature, there is a deeper level of failure that most marketers never even consider. It has to do with the specific metadata attached to your emails, things like the list unsubscribe header, and the way you handle your physical office address. In 2026, failing to properly configure these invisible elements is like driving a car with a hidden engine leak. You might be moving forward for now, but a total breakdown is inevitable. In the next part, we are going to dive into the technical metadata and the legal requirements that are now being used by AI filters as a litmus test for brand legitimacy. If you miss these, it won't matter how good your copywriting is because your emails will be stopped at the border. To understand the technical border control of the 2026 email ecosystem, we have to look at the metadata that sits behind your message. Imagine a business owner in Denver named James, who runs a specialized coffee subscription service. James spends hours selecting the perfect beans and writing heartfelt stories about the farmers he works with. His emails are beautiful and his intentions are pure. However, in early 2026, James notices that his open rates have dropped from 30% to a staggering 4% in less than a month. He has not changed his content or his frequency. What James does not realize is that the AI filters at the major mailbox providers have updated their litmus tests for brand legitimacy. They are no longer just reading his words, they are inspecting his digital passport, and James is missing several critical stamps. The first stamp James is missing is the correctly configured list unsubscribe header. Most amateur marketers think that having an unsubscribe link in the footer of their email is enough to satisfy the law and the filters. In 2026, that is a baseline requirement, not a gold standard. The major providers now look for a specific piece of code in the hidden header of your email, known as the list unsubscribe post header. This is what allows Gmail or Outlook to display a prominent unsubscribe button right next to the sender's name at the very top of the interface. Historical trends show that when a user cannot easily find a way to leave a list, they will report the email as spam. By 2026, the threshold for spam complaints has become razor thin. If more than 0.1% of your recipients report you as spam, your entire domain reputation can be downgraded instantly. By failing to include the one-click unsubscribe header, James is essentially forcing his less engaged subscribers to use the spam button as an exit strategy. A step-by-step audit of your email service provider settings is required here. You must ensure that your outgoing mail includes the list unsubscribe equals one-click command. Case studies from large-scale U.S. senders indicate that while this might lead to a slight increase in unsubscribes, the potential outcomes for long-term deliverability are massive because it drastically reduces the number of lethal spam complaints. Next, we must address the physical address requirement. Under the 2026 iterations of the CAN-SPAM Act and various state-level privacy laws, every commercial email must include a valid, physical postal address. Many small business owners like James make the mistake of using their home address or, even worse, a fake or incomplete address because they are concerned about privacy. This is a red flag for modern AI filters. These filters now have the capability to cross-reference the address listed in your footer against public business registries and geographic databases. If the address is flagged as a residential property or if it does not exist, your sender score takes a hit. The fix for this is not to compromise your personal privacy, but to invest in a legitimate commercial presence. This could be a P.O. box, a registered agent address, or a virtual office in a recognized business district. Historical data suggests that using a verified commercial address increases the perceived legitimacy of a brand not just to the filters, but to the savvy 2026 consumer who frequently checks the footer to see if a company is a real, registered entity. If you are operating a business in the United States today, your physical location is a component of your digital trust. Another invisible killer of campaigns is the use of third-party URL shorteners. Imagine James wants to track how many people click a link to a specific coffee-growing region in Ethiopia. He uses a popular, free URL shortener to make the link look cleaner. To a spam filter, this is the digital equivalent of a masked intruder. Spammers and phishers have used URL shorteners for decades to hide the true destination of malicious links. In 2026, the major mailbox providers have largely moved to a zero-trust policy regarding these services. When a filter sees a shortened link, it cannot easily verify the reputation of the final destination without a deeper scan, which often results in the email being diverted to the spam folder. The step-by-step resolution is to use your own branded tracking domain. Instead of a generic short link, James should be using a link that clearly belongs to his domain, such as https://www.google.com/search?q=links.jamescoffee.com. This allows the mailbox providers to see that the link is part of his verified ecosystem. This also provides a more cohesive experience for the user, as they see a consistent brand name throughout the entire interaction. Case studies in the tech sector have shown that branded links can increase click-through rates by up to 35%, because they eliminate the hesitation a user feels when seeing a suspicious, randomized URL. We also have to discuss the mistake of ignoring feedback loops or FBLs. Most business owners in 2026 are not even aware that these exist. A feedback loop is a service provided by major ISPs like Microsoft, Yahoo, and various cable companies that notifies a sender when a recipient marks their email as spam. If you are not signed up for these loops, you are flying blind. You might be sending mail to people who have already reported you, which is the fastest way to get your IP address blacklisted. To set this up, you need to visit the postmaster tools of each major provider. For instance, Microsoft offers the Smart Network Data Services or SNDS, which provides a dashboard showing how many of your emails were flagged as spam and the general health of your sending IP. By monitoring these feedback loops, you can identify if a specific campaign caused a spike in complaints and immediately remove those complaining addresses from your list. This proactive approach shows the ISPs that you are a responsible sender who is actively managing your audience. Furthermore, we must address the 2026 shift in how open rates are tracked. Since the introduction of advanced privacy protections by companies like Apple, the traditional open rate has become a ghost metric. These systems often prefetch images in pixels, which registers as an open even if the human being never saw the email. The mistake many marketers make is continuing to use these inflated open rates as their primary KPI for success. If you are basing your entire strategy on a metric that is effectively 30 to 40% inaccurate, you are making decisions based on bad data. The step-by-step transition involves moving toward engagement-based metrics that require an actual human action, such as click-through rates, conversion rates, and reply rates. James in Denver should stop worrying about how many people opened his email and start focusing on how many people spent more than 10 seconds reading it or how many people clicked through to his store. Modern email service providers in 2026 now offer real-time analytics, which give you a much more accurate picture of how your audience is actually consuming your content. However, even if your technical metadata is perfect and your tracking is accurate, there is a fundamental flaw in the way most people write their emails that can trigger a different kind of filter, a psychological filter that exists in the mind of the consumer. This is the mistake of the corporate voice. In an era where AI can generate millions of generic marketing messages every hour, the United States audience has developed an incredibly high sensitivity to anything that sounds like it came from a boardroom. If your tone is off, you will be ignored by humans even if you are accepted by the machines. In the next part, we are going to look at the linguistic mistakes that are currently causing high-value subscribers to tune out, and how to inject a level of authenticity that makes your brand the only thing they want to read in a crowded inbox. But before we get to the copy, there is one specific image mistake that is currently causing emails to load slowly and get flagged for high data usage, a technical trap that can kill your mobile conversion before the user even sees your first sentence. The technical trap begins with the physical weight of your media. Imagine a fashion retailer in New York City named Emily. It is early 2026, and Emily has just launched a stunning new summer collection. She hires a high-end photographer and receives files that are 12 megabytes each. She drops these high-resolution assets directly into her email template because she wants the quality to be breathtaking. However, when those emails hit the smartphones of her 50,000 subscribers across the United States, a massive technical friction point occurs. In 2026, mobile carriers and email applications have become extremely aggressive with high data usage warnings. When Emily's email attempts to load 12 megabytes of imagery over a cellular connection, the app might pause the download, display a data saver warning, or simply show a broken image icon for several seconds. In the hyperspeed digital culture of 2026, those seconds are a death sentence for her conversion rates. By the time the image finally renders, the user has already swiped to the next notification. Historical trends show that emails with a total weight exceeding 100 kilobytes for the HTML and 1 megabyte for total assets see a significant drop in engagement. The step-by-step solution for Emily, and for your strategy, is the aggressive adoption of the WebP image format. In 2026, WebP has become the industry standard for email because it provides superior lossy and lossless compression compared to the outdated JPEG and PNG formats. By converting her files to WebP, Emily can reduce her 12 megabyte assets down to less than 500 kilobytes without any visible loss in quality. This ensures that her email loads almost instantaneously on any device, regardless of connection speed. Furthermore, you must use an aspect ratio locking technique in your CSS. This prevents the layout from jumping around as the images load, a phenomenon known as cumulative layout shift. If the text moves while a customer is trying to read it, the frustration leads to an immediate exit. This brings us to the next critical failure, the dark mode disaster. Over 80% of US smartphone users in 2026 have dark mode enabled by default. If you are still using images with hard-coded white backgrounds or conversely black logos with transparent backgrounds, you are creating a visual nightmare. Imagine a subscriber in Seattle opening your email at night. The interface is dark, but suddenly a blinding white block from your unoptimized image hits their eyes. Or worse, your black logo disappears entirely into the dark background of the email client. Case studies from 2026 show that brands failing to optimize for dark mode see a 20% higher unsubscribe rate during evening hours. The fix is a technical one. Use transparent PNGs for logos but add a subtle white outer glow or a thin light stroke around dark text elements. This ensures they remain legible whether the background is stark white or midnight black. Beyond the technical, we have to confront the linguistic mistake of the corporate voice. Imagine a financial consultant in Charlotte named Robert. Robert is highly qualified, but his emails sound like they were written by a committee in 1995. He uses phrases like leveraging synergies, paradigm shifts, and optimal professional outcomes. In 2026, this type of language is a massive red flag. The United States audience has become incredibly sensitive to what they perceive as AI-generated fluff or corporate distancing. When Robert uses these buzzwords, he is inadvertently building a wall between himself and his clients. Historical trends indicate that the most successful email campaigns of 2026 use an authentic, conversational tone that mirrors a one-on-one text message or a personal letter. The step-by-step transition for Robert involves the 5-year-old test. If a sentence in his email is so complex that a 5-year-old couldn't understand the general sentiment, it needs to be rewritten. Robert should replace leveraging synergies with working together. Instead of saying the potential outcomes are optimal, he should say this usually helps people save time. This shift from the passive corporate voice to the active human voice creates immediate psychological safety. A case study of a mid-sized U.S. consulting firm found that by simply removing 3 corporate buzzwords and switching to a first-person narrative, their reply rate increased by 45%. People don't want to talk to a brand, they want to talk to Robert. However, the tone is irrelevant if the user never gets past the first 10 words. This leads to the above-the-fold psychological mistake. In 2026, the real estate on a mobile screen is the most valuable territory in marketing. Many businesses make the error of placing a large, useless logo or a generic greeting at the very top of their email. By the time the user scrolls down to see the actual value proposition, they have already lost interest. You have approximately 2 seconds to answer the subscriber's internal question. Why does this matter to me right now? To fix this, you must implement the inverted pyramid style of communication. Start with your most compelling piece of information or your strongest hook immediately. If you are offering a solution to a problem, state the problem and the solution in the first 2 sentences. In 2026, the preview pane, the small snippet of text shown in the inbox before the email is even opened, is your most powerful tool. If your preview text says having trouble viewing this email, click here. You have wasted your best opportunity. That text should be an extension of your subject line, providing a secondary hook that compels the click. For example, if the subject line is "your workflow is broken," the preview text should be "here are the 3 specific reasons why you are losing 2 hours every day." We must also discuss the mistake of the dead-end email. Every single communication you send must have a clear, singular objective. A common error is the lack of a prominent call to action or, conversely, having too many competing calls to action. If you send a beautiful update but don't tell the reader exactly what to do next, you are relying on them to do the work for you. In 2026, consumers will not do the work. Your call to action must be a high-contrast, thumb-friendly button that uses action-oriented language. Avoid generic terms like "click here" or "learn more." Instead, use specific, benefit-driven language like "get my free audit" or "start my 2026 plan." Step by step, you should audit your emails by looking at them for 3 seconds and then closing your eyes. If you cannot remember exactly what the one thing you were supposed to do was, your call to action is too weak. You also need to ensure there is enough white space around your buttons. In 2026, fat finger errors, where a user tries to click a link but hits the wrong one because they are too close together, are a leading cause of mobile abandonment. Ensure your buttons are at least 44 by 44 pixels, the standard for accessible mobile design. But even with perfect buttons, perfect images, and a human voice, there is a hidden bridge that most marketers forget to build. It's the gap between the email and the landing page. Many people spend weeks perfecting the email, but then send the user to a generic homepage that has nothing to do with the email's content. This disconnect is the single greatest killer of conversion in the 2026 US market. In the next part, we are going to dive into the architecture of the perfect transition, how to ensure that the moment a user clicks, they are met with a seamless experience that feels like a continuation of the conversation, rather than a jarring jump into a sales pitch. If you are seeing high click rates but zero sales, this specific disconnect is likely your primary culprit, and we are going to fix it with a 3-step congruency framework. Imagine a marketing director in Phoenix named Alex. It is mid-2026, and Alex is running a high-budget campaign for a national fitness app. His emails are performing exceptionally well in terms of engagement. His open rates are hovering around 25%, and his click-through rates are hitting a healthy 4%. On paper, Alex should be celebrating. However, when he looks at his final conversion data, the numbers are abysmal. Thousands of people are clicking the links in his emails, but almost none of them are completing the sign-up process. Alex is witnessing the classic conversion cliff, a phenomenon where the momentum of a successful email dies the moment the user hits the landing page. This happens because Alex has failed to maintain the scent trail. The 3-step congruency framework is the antidote to this specific failure. The first step of this framework is visual continuity. In the hyper-fast digital environment of 2026, the human brain makes a judgment about a website's legitimacy in less than 50 milliseconds. If a subscriber clicks a sleek, minimalist email with a specific shade of cobalt blue and a particular sans serif font, but lands on a page with a different logo placement, a cluttered layout, or a different color palette, a subconscious alarm goes off. The user feels a momentary sense of displacement, or even a slight fear that they have been redirected to a fraudulent site. Historical trends in user experience design show that even a minor visual disconnect can increase bounce rates by as much as 30%. To fix this, You must ensure that your email template is a direct visual sibling of your landing page. Every button color, every font weight, and every piece of brand imagery must be identical. If you use a specific hero image in the email, that exact image should be the first thing the user sees on the landing page. The second step is linguistic continuity. This is where most US-based marketers stumble. Imagine Alex's email has a bold headline that says, "The 5-minute morning routine for 2026 productivity." When the user clicks that link, they expect to see that exact headline at the top of the landing page. If instead they land on a page that says "Welcome to our wellness portal," the cognitive load increases. The user has to pause and ask themselves, "Am I in the right place? Is the routine here? Do I need to scroll to find it?" In 2026, if you make a user think for more than a second, you have lost them. A case study from a major Silicon Valley SaaS firm demonstrated that when the headline of the landing page was a word-for-word match of the email's call to action link, the conversion rate jumped by 40%. Step by step, you should audit your campaign by reading your email call to action out loud, and then immediately reading the landing page headline. If they don't sound like two halves of the same sentence, you have a linguistic leak that is draining your budget. The third step is offer continuity. This is the most dangerous area for potential outcomes. If your email mentions a specific price point, a specific discount code, or a specific bonus gift, that offer must be the central focus of the landing page. Many businesses make the mistake of sending users to a generic shop page where the user then has to hunt for the specific item or offer mentioned in the email. Imagine Alex's email offers a free 14-day trial. If the user clicks and is met with the landing page that asks for credit card information up front without prominently mentioning the free trial, the trust is instantly broken. Historical data suggests that transparency regarding the offer is the #1 driver of conversion in the 2026 market. You must ensure that the transition is seamless. If possible, use URL parameters to pre-populate the user's name or email address on the landing page form so they don't have to type it again. This reduces friction and makes the experience feel personalized and professional. Beyond the framework, we have to address the mistake of the landing page speed trap. In 2026, we are living in the era of Core Web Vitals 3.0. While Alex might have optimized his email for quick loading, if his landing page takes more than 2 seconds to become interactive, the user will bounce back to their inbox before the page even renders. Most of this lag is caused by unoptimized scripts, third-party tracking pixels, and heavy JavaScript frameworks. A step-by-step technical audit is required here. You should use tools to measure your largest contentful paint and your total blocking time. If your landing page is bloated with legacy code, it won't matter how good your email copy was. The potential outcomes of a slow page are a total collapse of your ROI. Historical trends show that for every 1-second delay in page load time, conversions drop by 7 to 10%. Another critical error in 2026 is the lack of mobile-first landing page design. While most marketers check their emails on mobile, they often design their landing pages on a 27-inch desktop monitor. This creates a massive disconnect. If a user in Chicago clicks an email while riding the train, they are looking at a narrow vertical screen. If your landing page has a multi-column layout or a complex navigation menu that is difficult to navigate with a thumb, they will leave. In 2026, your landing page should be designed as a single-column, scrollable experience with large, tappable elements. Case studies from top-tier US e-commerce brands show that simplifying the mobile landing page to just a headline, a short video, and a single button can result in a 50% higher conversion rate than a feature-rich desktop-style page. We also need to discuss the psychological mistake of the premature ask. Many email marketers treat the click as a final sale. They assume that if someone clicked the link, they are ready to buy. This leads to landing pages that are overly aggressive and skip the education phase. In reality, the click is just an expression of interest. The landing page's job is to fulfill the promise made in the email, and then provide enough secondary information to justify the purchase. If Alex's email promised a guide on productivity, the landing page should deliver that guide immediately. Once the user has received the value they were promised, then, and only then, is it appropriate to introduce a paid offer or a sign-up request. Failing to provide the promised value before asking for something in return is a primary cause of high bounce rates. However, even if your landing page is fast, congruent, and mobile-friendly, there is one hidden technical error that can still ruin everything. It involves the way you handle tracking pixels and the resulting privacy pop-ups. In 2026, The United States has seen a wave of new state-level privacy regulations. If the first thing a user sees after clicking your email is a massive, confusing cookie consent banner that blocks the entire screen, you have just introduced a major friction point. Many marketers make the mistake of using the default, intrusive settings for these banners. A better approach is to use a non-intrusive, compliant banner that sits at the bottom of the screen and does not prevent the user from seeing the headline and the primary call to action. But there is a deeper mistake that happens before the email is even sent, one that determines whether your email is seen as a welcome guest or an annoying intruder. It's the mistake of the inconsistent sending frequency. If you go from sending 1 email a month to sending 3 emails a day because you have a holiday sale, you are triggering the internal spam filters of your subscribers' brains. In the next part, we are going to look at the mathematics of frequency and the specific scheduling mistakes that cause mass unsubscribes. We will also explore the concept of the shadow ban for frequency, where your emails are delivered, but your engagement drops to 0 because your audience has developed banner blindness to your name in their inbox. This is a subtle trap that can destroy a brand's reputation in weeks, and we are going to break down the exact calendar you should be using to maintain a high-trust relationship. To understand the mechanics of frequency, let us look at the case of Marcus, a software founder based in Austin, Texas. In the early months of 2026, Marcus is managing a growing list of 40,000 subscribers for his small business accounting tool. Marcus falls into the most common frequency trap in the United States marketing landscape, the feast or famine cycle. For 3 months, Marcus is focused on product development and sends 0 emails. He assumes his audience will be there when he is ready. Then, in April 2026, he launches a new feature and sends 7 emails in 7 days to make up for lost time. The result is a catastrophic spike in unsubscribes and a plummeting sender reputation. When Marcus goes silent for 90 days, he is essentially committing digital suicide. In the 2026 email ecosystem, mailbox providers use a rolling window of engagement to determine where to place your mail. If you have not sent an email in 3 months, the algorithms at Gmail and Outlook lose their historical data on how your audience interacts with you. To them, you have become a cold sender. When Marcus suddenly blasts 7 emails in a week, the AI-driven filters see a massive surge in volume from a dormant domain. This is a classic behavior pattern of a hijacked account or a spammer who has purchased a stale list. Consequently, even Marcus's most loyal users start seeing his emails in the spam folder. This is the frequency shadow ban. You are still sending and the server says delivered, but your engagement is 0 because you are effectively invisible. Historical trends from 2025 and 2026 indicate that the optimal frequency for a US-based B2B brand is a consistent, predictable cadence of 1 to 2 times per week. The goal is to stay top of mind without becoming a nuisance. For a B2C brand, particularly in e-commerce, the frequency can be higher, but only if it is backed by high-value segmentation. A case study of a major US apparel brand showed that when they switched from a daily generic blast to a 3 times a week segmented send based on past purchase behavior, their revenue per email increased by 28% despite sending 40% less mail. The lesson from Marcus is clear. Predictability is the foundation of trust. A step-by-step framework for building a high-trust calendar starts with the baseline of 1 value-driven email every Tuesday or Thursday morning. In the 2026 market, these are the peak engagement windows for US professionals. This email should not be a sales pitch. It should be an educational piece that solves a specific problem for the user. If Marcus sends a weekly tip on tax savings for small businesses, he is training his audience to open his emails because they provide immediate utility. This builds a positive engagement history with the mailbox providers. The second layer of the calendar is the deep dive sequence. Once a month, you provide a long-form masterclass or a comprehensive guide. This creates a surge in dwell time, which is a metric that 2026 filters track closely. How long is the user actually keeping the email open? If Marcus sends a detailed guide on 2026 tax law changes, and his users spend 3 minutes reading it on their mobile devices, his sender reputation receives a massive boost. This high-quality engagement acts as a shield, protecting his deliverability when he eventually needs to send a more aggressive promotional sequence. The third layer is the promotional window. When Marcus does have a launch, he should not just start blasting. He should use a lead-up sequence. This involves sending 2 or 3 teaser emails that ask users to click a link to join a waitlist or express interest. By doing this, Marcus segments his list into those who are actively interested in the new feature and those who are not. He can then send the high-frequency sales emails only to the interested segment. This minimizes the risk of annoying the disinterested portion of his list and keeps his overall complaint rate below the lethal 0.1% threshold. We also have to address the mistake of the time zone blind spot. Many marketers in the United States send their emails based on their own local time without considering their audience's distribution. If you send an email at 9 a.m. Eastern Time, your subscribers in Los Angeles are seeing it at 6 a.m. while they are still asleep. By the time they wake up and check their phones, your email is buried under 50 other notifications. Historical data from 2026 shows that emails sitting at the bottom of a pile have a 50% lower open rate than those that arrive while the user is actively using their device. To fix this, you must use time zone-based delivery. Most modern email service providers now allow you to schedule a send so it hits every subscriber's inbox at a specific local time, such as 10 a.m., regardless of where they are in the world. For a national U.S. brand, this is non-negotiable. It ensures that your message is always at the top of the stack during the peak morning engagement window. Furthermore, in 2026, many providers offer AI-optimized delivery windows that analyze the specific hour each individual subscriber is most likely to check their email based on their past behavior. If Chloe in New York always checks her mail during her 5 p.m. commute, the system will hold her copy of the email until exactly then. Another frequency-related mistake is the failure to account for holiday fatigue. In the United States, the period between late November and early January is a graveyard for email engagement. Every brand is doubling or tripling their send frequency, leading to a massive sensory overload for the consumer. If you follow the crowd and increase your frequency during these windows without a significantly better offer, you are likely to be ignored. Case studies of successful 2026 campaigns show that brands that actually decrease their frequency during major holidays, but increase the personalization and value of each send saw a higher total ROI than those that participated in the volume war. Imagine if Marcus, instead of sending a daily Black Friday blast, sent one highly personalized email on the Monday before, offering an early access code specifically for the products he knows his customers have been eyeing. This creates a sense of exclusivity and reduces the friction of the crowded holiday inbox. By respecting the subscriber's time and attention, Marcus differentiates his brand from the noise. This is the psychological aspect of frequency. It is not just about how often you send, but the perceived value of each touchpoint. If every email feels like a gift, your frequency can be high. If every email feels like a demand for money, even once a month is too often. However, there is a technical element of frequency that many people forget, and it is called the warm-up phase. If you are migrating to a new email service provider or a new IP address in 2026, you cannot simply upload your list and hit send. This is the fastest way to get blacklisted. You have to gradually increase your volume over several weeks, starting with your most engaged subscribers. This proves to the mailbox providers that you are a legitimate sender with a healthy list. But even with a perfect calendar and a flawless warm-up, there is one critical error that can trigger a different kind of filter, the human filter of skepticism. This is the mistake of the personalization paradox. In 2026, trying too hard to sound like a friend when you are clearly a business can backfire in a way that is almost impossible to recover from. There is a specific type of fake personalization that the US audience now finds deeply repellent. In the next part, we are going to dive into the linguistic nuances of 2026 personalization and the specific words you must avoid to keep from sounding like a cold, calculating robot disguised as a helpful peer. If you have been using dynamic tags to insert names and locations, you might actually be hurting your conversion rates more than you think. This personalization paradox is the definitive line between a high-converting strategist and an amateur in the 2026 marketing landscape. Imagine a consumer named Chloe living in a high-rise in Boston. It is March 2026, and Chloe is a tech-savvy professional who is bombarded with hundreds of digital notifications every single day. She receives an email from a local furniture boutique that says, "Hey Chloe, we noticed you were looking at the mid-century modern velvet sofa on our website yesterday at 3:15 p.m. How is the weather over on Boylston Street today?" To the marketer who sent that, it feels like cutting-edge personalization. To Chloe, it feels like digital stalking. This is the uncanny valley of email marketing. When you use data just because you have it, without providing a corresponding level of value, you trigger a deep-seated defensive mechanism in the United States audience. Historical trends show that by 2026, the American consumer has developed an automation immune system. They can spot a dynamic tag from a mile away. The most common mistake is the low-effort first name insert. We have all seen the emails that start with "Hi" or worse, "Hi customer," because the database field was empty. In the current year, a broken tag is not just a minor embarrassment. It is a signal to the recipient that your brand is operating on a low-quality, automated autopilot. It suggests that you do not actually know who they are, you just have a row in a spreadsheet. This error immediately devalues whatever offer follows. The step-by-step fix for this is a move toward contextual relevance, rather than database-driven name-dropping. A case study from a major US-based travel platform in early 2026 demonstrated that removing the subscriber's name from the subject line and replacing it with a contextually relevant hook based on their last search actually increased open rates by 15%. Instead of saying, "Chloe, check out these flights," the subject line read, "Looking for a quiet getaway from Boston this April?" This is the difference between surveillance and service. The first one feels like you are reading her mail. The second one feels like you are solving her problem. To implement this, you must first audit your data hygiene. If you are going to use dynamic tags, you must have a robust fallback system. A fallback is the default text that appears if the specific data point is missing. Instead of leaving a blank space or a generic word like "friend," your fallback should be architected to fit the sentence perfectly. For example, instead of "Hey, your 2026 report is ready," use a logic-based tag that says "Your 2026 report is ready." If the name is there, it adds it. If not, the sentence remains grammatically perfect and professional. This requires a deeper level of technical integration with your email service provider, but the potential outcomes for your brand reputation are significant. Beyond the name tag, we have to look at behavioral triggers. Imagine Ben, a homeowner in San Diego, who is researching home security systems in 2026. He visits a website, looks at 3 different camera models, and then leaves. 2 hours later, he gets an automated email. The mistake many brands make here is being too transparent about the tracking. If the email says, "We saw you looking at the Outdoor Pro camera," Ben feels watched. However, if the email arrives with the subject line, "3 things to consider before installing an outdoor security system," and provides an educational comparison of the 3 models he viewed, the experience is transformed. It feels like a well-timed coincidence or an expert anticipating his needs. This is what we call intent-based segmentation. Step by step, you should map out your customer journey and identify the specific points where a user might be seeking information, but not yet ready to buy. Instead of a hard sell abandoned cart email, which is a historical tactic that is losing effectiveness in 2026, move toward a browse abandonment nurture sequence. Provide a case study of a similar customer, or a technical deep dive into the product's features. This builds authority and trust. Historical data indicates that educational nurture sequences have a 40% higher long-term retention rate than purely promotional ones. Another lethal mistake in personalization is the fake friend tone. In 2026, the US market is exhausted by brands trying to sound like their best friends. Emails that start with "I was just thinking about you today," or "I wanted to reach out personally to see how you are doing," when sent from a corporate account are viewed as inherently dishonest. Authenticity cannot be automated. If you are a large company, do not try to pretend you are a single person sitting at a desk writing a one-off note. The audience knows you are a business. They respect a business that treats them like a valued client, not a business that tries to gaslight them into a fake friendship. The fix is to use a tone that is professional, respectful, and high utility. In 2026, the most successful brands are those that lean into their identity. If you are a high-tech software company, your emails should sound like they come from an expert engineer. Precise, helpful, and forward-thinking. If you are a luxury lifestyle brand, your tone should be sophisticated and curated. You should use personalization to show that you understand the subscriber's preferences, not their private life. Show them products that match their aesthetic. Send them news that impacts their specific industry. This is how you use data to build a bridge rather than a wall. We also need to address the mistake of the static email. In 2026, your emails should be dynamic. This means the content of the email can change based on when it is opened. For example, if you are running a flash sale that ends at midnight on Friday, and a subscriber in Denver opens the email on Saturday morning, they should not see an expired offer. They should see a message that says, "You missed the sale, but here is our latest guide on how to get the most out of your current setup." This prevents the frustration of the dead-end click and maintains the user's positive perception of your brand. Using real-time content blocks is a technical step that separates the top 1% of marketers from everyone else. Furthermore, we must consider the self-segmentation mistake. Many marketers try to guess what their audience wants based on old data. In 2026, the most effective strategy is to simply ask them. Every 3 months, you should send a preference center update. Give your subscribers the power to choose what they hear about and how often. Imagine if Ben in San Diego could click a button and say, "Only send me technical updates once a week, and no sales promotions." While it might seem like you are losing the chance to sell to him, the reality is that you are saving the relationship. By giving him control, you ensure that he stays on your list and continues to open your emails for years. Historical trends show that lists with active preference centers have a 60% lower unsubscribe rate. But even with perfect personalization and a dynamic preference center, there is a fundamental element that can still fail you. It is the core of the message itself, the actual writing. There is a specific structural mistake in 2026 copywriting that is causing even the most personalized emails to be skimmed and forgotten. It is a trap that involves the way we construct our sentences for the modern distracted brain. In the next part, we are going to dive into the architecture of high-retention copywriting. We will look at why your paragraphs are likely too long, why your transitions are failing, and the specific rhythmic pattern you must use to keep a US reader engaged from the first word to the final call to action. If you have ever wondered why people start your emails but don't finish them, this next section is your answer. The architectural failure of most email copy in 2026 is the creation of the digital wall. Imagine a copywriter named Taylor in Austin, working for a high-growth wellness brand. Taylor is brilliant, her research is impeccable, and her product knowledge is second to none. However, when she sits down to write her weekly newsletter, she produces paragraphs that are 6 to 8 sentences long. On her large desktop monitor, these paragraphs look professional and substantial, but when her subscribers in New York or Los Angeles open that email on their mobile devices while waiting for a coffee, those paragraphs transform into a solid wall of text that fills the entire screen. In the 2026 attention economy, the human brain perceives a dense block of text as a high-effort task. Before the reader has even processed the first word, their subconscious has already decided to skip it. The historical trends of the mid-2020s show a radical shift toward microconsumption. If your email does not look easy to read, it will not be read. The step-by-step fix for Taylor, and for your strategy, is the 1-3-1 paragraph structure. This involves starting with a single punchy sentence to hook the reader. This is followed by a small block of no more than 3 sentences that provide context or data. You then finish the thought with another single impactful sentence. This creates white space. White space is not empty territory. It is visual breathing room that reduces the cognitive load on the reader. Case studies from top-tier US digital publications in 2026 suggest that emails using this broken-up structure have a 40% higher completion rate than those using traditional long-form paragraphs. But structure is only the skeleton. Rhythm is the soul of high-retention copy. Most amateur writers use sentences that are all roughly the same length. This creates a monotonous drone that lulls the reader into a state of boredom. To keep a 2026 audience engaged, you must write with a musical cadence. You start with a short sentence. Then you provide a medium-length sentence that adds a bit more detail and flavor. Then, when the reader is settled into the flow, you hit them with a very long sentence that builds momentum, uses descriptive adjectives, and paints a vivid picture of the potential outcomes they can expect if they follow your advice. And then you stop. You use a short sentence to drive the point home. This variation in sentence length mimics the way humans naturally speak and tell stories. It keeps the brain alert and prevents the skimming reflex from taking over. Another critical mistake is the failure to use transition triggers, often called bucket brigades. These are short phrases designed to pull the reader from one paragraph to the next, especially during the middle of the email where interest typically wanes. Imagine Taylor is explaining a complex technical feature of her wellness app. Instead of just listing the facts, she ends a paragraph with a phrase like, "But here's the part that surprised us," or "It gets even more interesting when you look at the data." These phrases create a micro-open loop. The reader feels a psychological itch to read the next line to find the answer. Historical data in US direct response marketing indicates that these small linguistic bridges can increase time on page by 25%. They turn your email into a grease slide where the reader finds it harder to stop reading than to continue. We also have to address the mistake of the passive voice. Many US businesses in 2026 still write as if they are submitting a legal deposition. They say things like, "It was observed that our users preferred the new interface." This is slow, heavy, and boring. In the fast-paced 2026 market, you must use the active voice. Instead of saying "it was observed," say "our users love the new interface." The active voice assigns a clear subject and a clear action. It creates energy. It makes your brand feel decisive and forward-moving. A step-by-step audit of your copy should involve highlighting every instance of the word was or been. If you can rephrase those sentences to be more direct, you will immediately notice an increase in the perceived authority of your brand. Furthermore, we must discuss the most neglected real estate in an email: the PS section. Historical trends in heat mapping show that after the subject line and the first sentence, the PS is the most read part of any email. This is because many users instinctively scroll to the bottom to see how long the email is, or to find the unsubscribe link. If they see a PS that contains a high-value tip, a limited-time bonus, or a compelling summary of the main point, they are often pulled back up into the body of the email. Taylor's mistake was leaving the PS empty, or using it for a generic legal disclaimer. In 2026, the potential outcomes of a well-crafted PS include a 10 to 15% lift in total click-through rates. Use it to restate your primary call to action in a new, urgent way, or to provide a sneak peek of what is coming in the next email. This leads us to the scannability error. In 2026, people do not read. They scan in an F pattern. They read the first line, skim down the left side of the screen, and then read the middle of the page. If your key information is buried in the middle of a long paragraph on the right side of the screen, it is effectively invisible. To counter this, you must use bullet points and subheadlines effectively. But there is a mistake here too: the boring bullet point. Do not just list features. Each bullet point should be a mini headline that focuses on a benefit. Instead of saying, high-resolution screen, say, crystal clear display that prevents eye strain during late-night sessions. This turns your list of features into a list of reasons to care. Imagine if Taylor used these scannable elements to highlight her case studies. Instead of a long paragraph describing a customer success story, she could use a bold subheadline: How a New York executive saved 10 hours a week. This immediately grabs the attention of any reader who shares that profile. By catering to the scanner, you are actually giving them the breadcrumbs they need to decide that your email is worth a deep dive. Step by step, you should look at your email and ask, if I only read the headlines and the bullet points, would I still understand the core value proposition? If the answer is no, your copy is not optimized for the 2026 US reader. We also need to look at the mistake of the internal monologue. Many writers spend too much time talking about themselves, their process, and their company history. The 2026 consumer is inherently self-interested. They are asking, what is in it for me? Every sentence in your email should be a bridge between the user's current problem and your solution. If you find yourself using the word we or are more than the word you or your, you are making the brand-centric mistake. Historical trends show that customer-centric copy, where the reader is the hero of the story and the brand is the guide, has a significantly higher conversion rate. But even with the most rhythmic, active, and customer-centric copy, there is one final mistake that can render all of this effort useless. It's the mistake of the failed conclusion. Many marketers write a brilliant email and then just let it fade away with a weak or confusing ending. They fail to tell the reader exactly what the stakes are if they don't act now. In the next and final part of this masterclass, we are going to pull everything together. We will look at the endgame strategy for 2026, the specific way to close an email that triggers immediate action, and how to use data loops to ensure that every email you send is smarter than the last. We are also going to reveal the one metric that matters more than opens or clicks, the true North Star of email marketing that will determine whether your brand thrives or vanishes in the next 24 months. This is the piece that ties the technical, the psychological, and the structural into a single dominant strategy. The true North Star of email marketing in 2026 is a metric that many businesses are still failing to measure properly: the Net Engagement Score, or NES. To understand why this matters more than any other data point, imagine a business owner in Atlanta named Jason. Jason runs a high-end home automation company. In early 2026, his traditional metrics look decent. His open rates are 22% and his click-through rates are hovering around 3%. However, Jason is noticing a disturbing trend. His cost per acquisition is rising every month, and his list is shrinking faster than he can grow it. This is because Jason is focusing on surface-level activity rather than the health of his relationship with his subscribers. The Net Engagement Score is a weighted calculation that reflects the true value of your audience's interaction. In the 2026 landscape, not all actions are created equal. A simple open might be worth 1 point, a click might be worth 5 points, but a reply or a forward is worth 20 points. Conversely, an unsubscribe is minus 50 points, and a spam complaint is minus 500 points. When Jason calculates his NES, he realizes that while people are opening his emails, they are also reporting him as junk at a rate that is slowly poisoning his sender reputation. Historical trends in the US market show that brands with a high NES have a 4 times higher lifetime value per subscriber than those who only optimize for opens. A step-by-step framework for implementing the NES starts with your data integration. You must connect your email service provider with your CRM and your sales platform. You then assign values to specific behaviors. In 2026, you should also track negative signals like the scroll depth of your emails. If someone opens an email but closes it in under 2 seconds, that should be recorded as a passive signal that carries very little weight. If they stay on the email for 30 seconds and then click a link, that is a high-intent signal. By focusing on the NES, Jason can identify which segments of his list are actually profitable and which ones are just dead weight. This allows him to shift his focus from volume to value, which is the only way to survive in a high-competition environment. This brings us to the mistake of the week conclusion. Most emails in 2026 end with a whimper. They provide great information and then simply stop, or they offer a generic button that feels like an afterthought. To trigger immediate action, you must use a psychological framework known as the cost of inaction. Imagine if Jason ends his email about home security by saying, "Click here to see our cameras." That is a low-stakes request. Now, imagine if he ends it by describing the world where the subscriber does nothing. He might say, "Every day you wait is another day your home remains vulnerable to the specific vulnerabilities we discussed above." The friction of your current manual setup is not just an annoyance. It is a drain on your time and peace of mind. By framing the call to action as a solution to a persistent and costly problem, Jason shifts the subscriber's perspective. Historical data suggests that humans are more motivated by the fear of loss than the prospect of gain. This is not about being alarmist. It is about being honest about the consequences of staying in the current state. In the US market of 2026, consumers are looking for leaders who can help them navigate complex decisions. A strong, authoritative conclusion that points toward a specific, beneficial next step is the hallmark of a high-converting strategy. The next critical piece is the data loop. In 2026, your email strategy should be a self-correcting system. A common mistake is treating every campaign as an isolated event. Instead, you should be using automated sentiment analysis on your replies. If Jason sends an email and receives 10 replies asking about the same technical specification, his system should automatically flag that as a gap in his content. The next email in the sequence should be updated to address that question before it is even asked. This is the difference between a static campaign and a dynamic conversation. Case studies of top-performing US tech brands show that using these feedback loops can reduce customer support inquiries by 30% while simultaneously increasing sales conversion. Furthermore, we must address the mistake of the disconnected post-purchase experience. Many marketers stop their best efforts the moment a sale is made. In 2026, the potential outcomes of a high-quality post-purchase sequence are massive. This is where you turn a one-time buyer into a lifelong advocate. Imagine if, after a customer buys a security system, Jason sends a series of 3 emails. The first is a simple thank you note that includes a direct link to the setup video. The second is a check-in 3 days later to ask if they have any questions. The third, sent 10 days later, provides a case study of another customer who optimized their system for maximum energy savings. By continuing to provide value after the transaction, Jason is reinforcing the wisdom of the customer's purchase. This prevents buyer's remorse and sets the stage for future upsells. In 2026, the cost of acquiring a new customer is significantly higher than the cost of retaining an existing one. If your email strategy does not include a robust retention and referral loop, you are leaving the most profitable part of your business on the table. Historical trends indicate that a 5% increase in customer retention can lead to a 25 to 95% increase in profits. Finally, we must consider the long-term outlook of the email landscape beyond 2026. We are moving into an era of AI-driven personal agents. In the near future, your subscribers may not even be reading your emails themselves. Their AI assistants will be scanning the inbox, summarizing the most important messages, and discarding the noise. To ensure your brand makes the cut, you must be a source of primary, irreplaceable value. This means moving away from generic newsletters and toward highly specific, data-driven insights that an AI agent will recognize as essential for its user. If you have followed this masterclass from the beginning, You now have the blueprint to dismantle the most common and catastrophic mistakes in your strategy. You know how to fix your technical infrastructure, how to optimize your psychology, and how to structure your copy for the distracted 2026 brain. You understand that email is not a broadcast medium. It is a relational one. By treating every inbox you enter with respect and every subscriber as a unique individual, you position your brand as a trusted authority in a sea of automated noise. The strategy we have built today is designed to be a living, breathing asset for your business. It requires constant auditing, testing, and refinement, but the potential outcomes for those who do the work are undeniable. You will see higher deliverability, deeper engagement, and a significantly higher ROI from your digital marketing efforts. You are no longer just sending emails, you are building a high-performance engine for growth. But there is a final, hidden layer to this entire system that we have only briefly touched upon. It is the concept of the autonomous workflow, the ability to build these complex, high-conversion systems so they run entirely on their own, adapting to every user's behavior in real time without you ever having to lift a finger. In the next series, we are going to dive into the technical architecture of these autonomous systems. We will look at the specific AI tools and API integrations that are currently allowing the world's most successful brands to scale their personalization to millions of people simultaneously. If you thought this masterclass was a deep dive, you haven't seen anything yet. We are about to show you how to take everything you've learned today and put it on a high-speed, fully automated autopilot.